Hi YouTube! So I want to try to make this video. I'm not sure how it's gonna go. I have the neighbors kids playing outside and they're really loud. And my husband might come home with the groceries, so we'll just see how it goes. So I want to make a video about my birth story, and this is like a really different birth story because I did a home induction with the cotton root bark and castor oil. So looking on the internet, I haven't been able to find any information about cotton root bark, nor have I been able to find any blogs or any like journaling or anything of women's experiences with it. So I'd like to tell you about mine. So cotton root bark is what my midwife suggested, and it's something that she's been working with like the whole time that she's been doing her work, and she said she's never seen it fail. So I have to say that I'm really grateful that it existed, because when I took it was 41 weeks and 2 days. So I was, a little over a week past due, and if you get to 42 weeks, you can't do a home birth, at least here in California. So I was like, and we've been paying for the home birth out of pocket. Our insurance doesn't cover it. So it was like, as much as, we still really wanted to have a home birth for all of, our own reasons, taking advantage of how much we've invested in it was definitely a big part of it. So, needless to say, yes, I was very grateful for the cotton root existing, and I was really nervous about whether it was going to work or not, since I hadn't really read any other people's experiences. So what the cotton root bark is, you take it every 15 minutes for 6 hours. So that seems a little intimidating at first, because it's like, wow, every 15 minutes, but it wasn't too bad. The cotton root bark doesn't taste bad. I just had the timer on my phone set, so every time I would just have like a little shot glass with apple juice and the cotton root bark, and every 15 minutes a timer would go off on my phone, and I'd take a shot, and then I'd restart the timer. And so I started that about 3 o'clock on August 23rd, on the Saturday, August 23rd. So I started that at 3 o'clock and ended it at 9 o'clock. That's 6 hours. And then at 9 o'clock, I took a shot of castor oil, of course, in a milkshake, not by itself. I made a little castor oil milkshake, and so throughout the day of taking the cotton root bark, I was feeling a lot of Braxton Hicks, and they were feeling kind of close together, and they were feeling stronger than my usual Braxton Hicks, but they were definitely Braxton Hicks. And I say that because they felt a lot different, because it was just in my stomach. It was just in like the middle of my stomach, whereas the real contractions later were definitely way down in my pelvis, super low. So it was a different feeling. So I was getting Braxton Hicks all day, and when it came time to take the castor oil, they were a little bit more intense. So throughout the day, they still were getting more intense. So I took the castor oil at 9 o'clock. And it was about, sorry, I'm looking at my journal over here. It was about 11 o'clock when we started keeping track of the contractions. So at 10 o'clock, they changed. So like an hour after I took the castor oil and I had stopped taking the cotton root bark, that I started to feel real contractions, and they were handleable, but still kind of like take my breath away, like need a minute to focus, but definitely like I was able to breathe through them. So at 11 o'clock we started keeping track, and they were lasting for 1 to 2 minutes long, and they were 4 to 5 minutes apart. So we went ahead and so at 12 I had Steve fill up the birthing tub, because I was like just ready. Even though they were manageable, they were still like painful, so I was still just ready to like have some sort of relief, and also be like, if this is false labor, then at least they'll go away if I get in the tub. But I got in the tub and they did get more intense and they did get closer together. So it was like we definitely knew at that point that that I was definitely in labor. So at like 1 o'clock, we went ahead and called my midwife and our doula, and or that was like at 1:30. And so they all came here. So yeah, that was 1 o'clock in the morning. So they all got here, you know, sometime around 2 probably, because some of them had to drive from like across the bay. So they got here around 2 in the morning, and my contractions just were pretty much just consistently like 3 minutes apart, lasting for like 2 minutes. So they stayed like that for hours. Like they got there at 2, and then at 3 o'clock was the earthquake. There was an earthquake here, and luckily, you know, it wasn't that big here in San Francisco. It was like maybe 5 seconds long. I don't know, I was in the hormone zone, so like I was totally unaffected by it, but everyone else seemed kind of freaked out. So that was really funny, or ironic, that the earthquake happened during labor. So 3 o'clock the earthquake hit, and we waited a couple hours after that, and my contractions weren't getting any more intense or any closer together. They were just staying that consistent 3 minutes apart for 2 minutes. So I just went ahead and sent them home. Like I just didn't want to go through what we did with when we went through the false labor a couple weeks before that, where I had them all stay there for a few hours, and then my labor never progressed and it ended up going away, and I didn't have them that night. So I went ahead and sent them home, and they had me get out of the tub because they were like, you've been in there for 2 hours, you know, we don't want it to relax them too much. We want to, if the baby's coming, like get the baby coming because it's been so long. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, they left, and so I had been up all night, and I was so tired. And actually, a little bit before they left is when my sister got here with my niece, with her daughter. And so they got here, my midwives left, and I was freaking exhausted. So we all just went to sleep. And luckily, Ocean was sleeping through all of this. Even she woke up a tiny bit for the earthquake, but she went back to sleep. And so that was really awesome that she was sleeping through all this. So the midwives left at 5, and we all go back to sleep. And luckily, I actually fell asleep. Like that little bit of sleep that I got in this time probably saved my life, because I was waking up while I was sleeping, still getting contractions, but at 6 o'clock, I woke up with a huge contraction where I was like screaming. Like I was moaning a little bit with all the other contractions, like very, like kind of quietly, but I woke up with this one screaming. It was like I knew he was coming. It was really intense. So I had 2 of those huge screaming contractions, and then my husband, he called the midwife, and I was scared. I wasn't necessarily scared that she wasn't going to make it, because I knew that she lives semi-close. There's like the doula, she lives further away, but the midwife lived pretty close, so I knew that she was going to make it. But I was scared because it was so intense of a feeling. Like this is, I mean, yeah, like all natural home birth, you know, and no pain medicines, nothing. And it was just like, I was scared because I just felt like I didn't know what to do with all that pain. And it was so all of a sudden. But yeah, luckily she got there, and she got there at like 6:30 or something, and no, that's right, I just met with her, and she got here at 6:40, and he was born at 7:06. So she did barely make it, and it was pretty magical. Yeah, like it was all really fast. Like 6 o'clock was that first contraction, and 7 o'clock is when he was out, and that was literally 5. I had 5 huge contractions, and he was out. It was pretty miraculous. And he came out in his bag. My bag never popped. He came out in his water bag. So it was a pretty amazing birth. I pretty much skipped transition. I went from the first stage of labor straight into pushing, which in a lot of ways is really lucky because it went by really fast, and really in retrospect, kind of, I didn't really experience that much pain comparative to, how long other women are in labor and how painful it is. So that was really cool, but in other ways it was kind of intense and a little scary because it did just go from being like something that was mediocre, manageable, to being something that was insanely, like, just too much. So, but he came out totally healthy, and he was crying before he was all the way out, which is totally different than Ocean. Ocean didn't cry at all. She was very quiet during her birth. So yeah, he came out 7.7 pounds, and 20.5 inches long. And yeah, so it was pretty much, and Ocean was there for when I was pushing him out, like, because I was screaming at that point with those contractions. She woke up and she came into the room and she was super excited about it. My doula told me that she looked like excited and overjoyed about it. So I'm really happy to hear that, because a lot of people were kind of scared how that would go with having a 5-year-old at a home birth. But yeah, she was totally stoked and she loved it. And he's fussy. Yeah, so afterwards, I did lose a little bit more blood than usual. I didn't lose too much to where I didn't have to go to the hospital or anything, but it was more than usual. And what happened was I got like a clot, like a blood clot, like stuck when my uterus was trying to contract to shut off the blood. And since a clot got stuck in there, there was still some blood that was flowing out. I know, that's yucky. You don't want to hear about that, huh? But we did eventually get it out, and I was able to get up, and that was pretty much the only problem, is that I wasn't able to stand up and go to the bathroom. So for the first week, I didn't stand or walk or do anything. I really gave myself the time to take it easy and just relax with how I needed to. So yeah, and yeah, so it all went really good, and it was super perfect, and I'm so grateful. And so I don't know, I can't say how much of my birth was affected necessarily by the cotton root bark. Like, I don't know if it went fast because of that. Also, to some extent, I suppose, I don't know if it worked. It could be totally incidental that I went into labor when I happened to take it. But honestly, because I was feeling more contractions as I was taking it, I do really feel like it was the cotton root bark. And it did feel really sensitive. I don't necessarily feel like it went fast because of it. I just, I don't know. But I'm so grateful that it worked. I was so ready for him to be here, and I definitely would recommend it to any mom who's having troubles and who, doesn't want to have all the other induction options that are maybe a little bit more invasive. So, yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below, and I will get back to them. And thanks so much for listening to this super long video. One love.